BTS made K-pop history with Dynamite, and the entire video is a Michael Jackson tribute. The opening frame is Jungkook in a bedroom with a Michael Jackson poster on the wall. V recreates poses directly from Off the Wall and Break of Dawn. And Michael Jackson's own nephew, Taj Jackson, watched the video and tweeted that Michael would be proud. The song that defined K-pop's breakthrough into the West was built as a love letter to Michael Jackson. And BTS is not the only one. EXO's Kai has credited Jackson as the reason he understood what a real performance was. Taemin from SHINee has said Jackson was the foundation of everything he knows about stagecraft. NCT's Haechan performed Billie Jean in full Michael Jackson costume at SM's Halloween party, just because he wanted to. Rain, who was the biggest Korean solo artist before the Hallyu wave, was compared to Jackson so often that it became a talking point in mainstream Korean media. The influence runs so deep that in 2023, a documentary celebrating the 40th anniversary of Michael Jackson's Thriller showed BTS choreography next to Michael Jackson's and stated on screen, "Every move they do is all Michael Jackson." His own estate pointed at K-pop and said that came from here. So this video is about how that happened. How a genre built in Seoul has Michael Jackson so deep in its DNA that the song that finally made the West pay attention was a tribute to him. April 1992. A group called So Taiji and Boys performs a song called I Know on a live TV talent show. It is a blend of rap, New Jack Swing, and Korean melody. The judges give it the lowest score of the night. The Korean public makes it #1 for 17 consecutive weeks. Rolling Stone and most music historians now treat that performance as the birth of modern K-pop. A country that had been dominated by trot ballads for decades suddenly had a group with Western production, choreography, attitude, and energy. Everything changed almost overnight. And Seo Taiji was a documented Michael Jackson obsessive. The New Jack Swing sound powering I Know came directly from Jackson's 1991 album Dangerous, which had brought that genre to its biggest commercial moment. Korean press at the time literally called Seo Taiji the Michael Jackson of South Korea. One of his own songs from that era was described by critics as a direct production tribute to Dangerous. So before K-pop even had a name, a South Korean musician listened to Michael Jackson and built something from it. That's the origin. But the story gets more concrete from there. Lee Soo-man spent the 1980s studying in the United States during the full peak of the Michael Jackson era. He came back to Korea in 1995 and founded SM Entertainment with a specific model in mind: artists who are complete performance packages. Not just singers, not just dancers, both at the same time at the highest level. Cinematic music videos, total visual identity, the trainee system that built toward all of it. That's the Michael Jackson model turned into a repeatable industry process. And then SM did something almost nobody talks about. They hired the people who had literally worked with Michael Jackson. Teddy Riley, the producer who co-produced Jackson's Dangerous album and invented New Jack Swing, flew to Seoul in 2009 and started producing for SM artists. Girls' Generation, SHINee, EXO, FX. A man who sat in the studio with Michael Jackson was now building the sound of what would become fourth-generation K-pop. SM's own choreographer Rino Nakasone, who created routines for Girls' Generation, said it directly when asked why choreography became so central to K-pop. Man, seriously, because of Michael Jackson. Every time he made a video, everybody copied his moves. SM wanted something catchy in that same way. That is the entire K-pop choreography philosophy summarized in 2 sentences. Before I show you exactly how this shows up in specific idols and moments you already know, I need to be clear about what Michael Jackson actually contributed that was original to him. What Michael Jackson did was something more specific. And it was specific enough to change an industry. He was the first pop artist to make choreography the centerpiece at the scale of a global superstar. When he performed Billie Jean at the Motown 25 special in 1983 and debuted the moonwalk in front of a live television audience, he was proving to a mainstream pop audience in real time that the dancing could be the entire reason to watch, not just the singing or the celebrity. And then he applied that same logic to music videos at a scale nobody had attempted. Thriller was not just a music video. It was a 14-minute short film with a horror narrative, a credited director, a cast of dancers, and a choreographed zombie sequence that people watched not to hear the song, but to see what was happening on screen. Beat It staged a gang conflict and resolved it through dance. Smooth Criminal built a noir world where every formation change communicated stakes. He turned the music video into a storytelling medium where choreography carried the narrative, not just the visuals. And it is the template every K-pop music video has been built from ever since. SM's choreographer Rino Nakasone confirmed exactly this. She said K-pop choreography becoming essential as it did was because of Michael Jackson specifically. Now let me show you the idols who have been the most open about where they absorbed this from. EXO's Kai. If you know K-pop dance, you know Kai is consistently ranked among the best dancers in the industry, full stop. And Kai has been openly talking about Michael Jackson as his primary influence since his trainee days. He has said that watching Michael Jackson perform changed what he understood a performance to actually be. Not about completing moves correctly, about making the audience feel something through every single motion. Rain, arguably the biggest Korean solo artist before the Hallyu wave went global, was so heavily influenced by Michael Jackson that he made no effort to hide it. Critics and fans drew direct comparisons constantly. Rain's stage presence, his relationship with choreography as the centerpiece of performance rather than a supporting element, was the Michael Jackson inspiration. Taemin from SHINee, one of the most technically respected dancers K-pop has ever produced. He has cited Michael Jackson as the defining influence on how he understands performance. If you watch his solo stages, particularly Danger and Move, you can see the Michael Jackson DNA in how he uses the full performance space, how deliberate the transitions are, and how the choreography builds narrative tension rather than just showcasing technical ability. And NCT's Haechan. He showed up to SM Entertainment's Halloween party, cosplaying Michael Jackson in full costume and performed Billie Jean. He has talked multiple times in interviews about how Billie Jean was the song that permanently changed his understanding of what a performance could be. He said it was the first time he realized a single song performed by a single person could completely own a room. These idols are not casually citing influence. They are describing a foundational rewiring. And the moment I mentioned at the start of this video, the 2023 moment that made it all official, is the most powerful piece of evidence for just how deep this goes. December 2023. Showtime releases Thriller 40, a documentary celebrating the 40th anniversary of Michael Jackson's Thriller album. It explores the reach of Jackson's influence on modern music and performance across the entire globe. And in the middle of a documentary about one of the most famous albums in music history, BTS appears. Not as an aside or as a footnote, as a central example of Michael Jackson's living legacy. The documentary showed a side-by-side comparison of Michael Jackson's choreography with BTS performances. And then it stated, in the documentary itself, about BTS, every move they do is all Michael Jackson. The estate of the most influential pop artist in history looked at the biggest K-pop group in the world and said these guys are carrying the legacy. BTS Army went completely wild online. But BTS had already been saying this themselves for years. When they released Dynamite in 2020, the video was loaded with deliberate Michael Jackson references. The very first frame is Jungkook in a bedroom with a Michael Jackson poster on the wall. V recreates poses directly referencing Jackson's Off the Wall and Break of Dawn. The choreography borrows movement vocabulary from Billie Jean. The retro disco setting, the funk energy, the way the choreography looks effortless but carries intricate synchronized weight underneath, all of it is a direct conversation with Michael Jackson's legacy. And Dynamite was not just a tribute video. Dynamite was the song that made BTS the first Korean act to debut at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. The song that, more than arguably any other single moment, cracked the Western mainstream wide open for K-pop. That song, in its DNA, is built on Michael Jackson's foundation. Think about what that means. The moment that changed K-pop's relationship with the Western music industry forever was built from Michael Jackson's musical and visual language. The genre that Michael Jackson accidentally inspired in 1991 used his own blueprint to conquer the market he once owned. That is not a small story. That is one of the most interesting through lines in modern music history. And yet somehow most people in K-pop fandom have never traced it all the way back. Let me be direct about what Michael Jackson contributed to K-pop as a genre, because I want to be precise about it. The first thing is the performance as experience philosophy at scale. Michael Jackson wasn't the first person to put on a visually commanding live show, but he was the first global pop superstar to make choreography the centerpiece of that experience for a mainstream audience. K-pop absorbed this and industrialized it, building entire training systems around producing performers who execute it simultaneously with 6 or 7 members. The choreography first approach K-pop is famous for has real roots in what Jackson demonstrated was possible. The second thing is the music video as a cinematic event. Thriller changed what the music video industry thought its own ceiling was. It was the first time a promotional video for a pop song operated with the ambition of a short film, complete with narrative, director, cast, and choreographed sequences that people sought out to watch rather than just absorb while listening. K-pop took that template seriously in a way that most Western pop genres eventually stopped doing. The production budgets, the concept-driven narratives, the choreography built to be watched rather than just heard. That lineage runs through Thriller. The third thing is the visual identity as part of the artistic statement. Michael Jackson's styling was not an afterthought. The glove, the red jacket, the white socks, each element was deliberate and reinforced who he was as a performer. K-pop, particularly from the SM Entertainment model onward, took that idea and systematized it into the concept system, where every comeback has a consistent visual world extending from styling to set design to music video to stage design. That total package approach was something Jackson demonstrated could work at the highest commercial level. These are real contributions. They're also not the whole story of where K-pop came from, but they're a significant and under-acknowledged part of it. I want to acknowledge something that sometimes gets lost in this conversation. Because when we talk about Michael Jackson's influence on K-pop, we're also talking about something bigger. Michael Jackson's musical and visual language was rooted in Black American culture. New Jack Swing was a genre born from Black artists fusing hip-hop and R&B. The dance styles that built his performance philosophy came from street dance, from funk, from a lineage of Black performance that stretches back through James Brown and Cab Calloway. The moonwalk itself traces back to earlier Black dancers, before Michael perfected and globalized it. K-pop absorbed all of that: the choreography, the production sound, the performance philosophy. It absorbed it enthusiastically and built one of the most profitable entertainment industries in human history from it. There is a real conversation to have about how that borrowing has been credited and whether the original artists who contributed to that cultural foundation have been acknowledged proportionally by an industry that has benefited enormously from it. The idols themselves, Rain, Taemin, Kai, Haechan, the ones who have directly and openly cited Michael Jackson, are being more honest about the debt than the industry at large sometimes chooses to be. Michael Jackson himself talked openly about how his music was a continuation of a lineage he didn't invent from nothing. And the irony is that K-pop, the genre that borrowed most thoroughly from what he built, is now the genre most visibly carrying his performance philosophy forward to a generation of fans who weren't alive when Thriller dropped. That's a legacy. It just deserves to be spoken about with more clarity than it usually is. The K-pop industry figured out how to take what Michael Jackson built and make it scalable, repeatable, and exportable to a global market. They professionalized the philosophy. They built training programs around it. They created a feedback loop between performance excellence and fan devotion that Michael Jackson operated instinctively, and K-pop turned into a system. Michael Jackson is not the only reason any of that exists. K-pop has its own history, its own creative evolution, its own generation of producers, choreographers, and companies who built something genuinely new on top of influences from multiple directions. But he is a bigger part of that foundation than the industry usually acknowledges. A kid from Gary, Indiana who decided that pop music should be an experience and not just a sound. He never knew what he started, but it is still going. Do you think K-pop does enough to acknowledge where the performance philosophy actually comes from? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe if you're new.